Hola.
Hola!
Welcome. Hola. Welcome to, uy, qué horror, a Latinx horror movie podcast with Jonny and Aileen. I am Jonny,
I'm Aileen.
and in this spooky podcast, we will be watching a Latin American horror movie. If it has a Latin American director, we'll watch it. If it has a Latin American lead, we'll watch it. Latin America horror, we'll watch it.
We're watching it.
Would you like to tell us
Yes.
what we're going to be watching this week? Because your pronunciation will be a lot better than mine.
This week we watched what is considered to be the very first Brazilian horror movie. It is by José Mojica Marins. And the film we watched, A Meia-Noite, Levarei sua Alma. At midnight, I will take your soul.
So, can we just talk about this very, very quickly before we get into it? So, Brazil. I just called you Brazil. So, Eileen and I,
Brazil and Jonny.
Brazil and I, Eileen and I unofficially met in Brazil. We
Correct.
both lived there as kids, and so when José or Zé do Caixão starts talking at the top of the film, he says, "A meia-noite."
Yes.
Which to me, I was like, wait, hold on. I had to pause because I was like, is this from Portugal?
Honestly, I heard Portugal also, and I was like, hold on. But then I was like, no, it's because Brazil, like any other country in the world, has a lot of different areas, and it's a humongous country.
Huge.
And so just like in the United States, as we have states that have different accents, in Brazil, their states have different accents as well. So Zé do Caixão, or this film, A Meia-Noite Levarei Sua Alma, is set in like a more like an interior, o interior is what you would call it in Brazil. So there's a specific accent that people from the interior of Brazil, how they sound. So their T's are less ch sounds and more t sounds. Their R's are more r sounds rather than
it is
sounds.
the most like rolling R's I've ever heard. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this a more São Paulo accent?
Not really. São Paulo is more like the Paulista accent, because when you're from São Paulo, you call them Paulista, is more like the R's are more are more back in the throat. I couldn't do it right now. Like, sure. If you ask me to do a from Rio, that's more like dois. Like, let's count. Dois, três, quatro, cinco. That's like a pretty neutral situation. In Rio, you'd be like dois, três, quatro, cinco. It's more shh.
Yeah,
sounding.
it's a little like squishier.
Yeah.
It's something different.
São Paulo, I feel, would be more like dois, três. Nope.
Look, I get what you're trying to say here. The reason I ask about São Paulo is because I believe that is where Marins is from.
Yes.
So throughout the movie, we hear like a meia-noite or like a morte. And I was just like, my brain had so much trouble wrapping around that. But we will get into it. We will discuss. So let me give you just before we really get into it, let me give you a brief synopsis.
Yes, great.
Of what this movie is. All right, I'm going to try this title. A meia-noite levarei sua alma. That's not bad. I'm still got it in there. It's not bad.
You nailed it.
All right, Marins stars as Zé do Caixão, otherwise known as Coffin Joe, an undertaker who believes that he can achieve immortality by having a son, a concept he refers to as the continuation of blood.
Yeah.
Great.
This guy, I mean, what? Okay. First of all, now we watched this movie on YouTube, and I thought, so in the YouTube, it starts off with a now much older Marins. He basically is introducing this film. and he has his hands like across his chest and like holding his face, and on either side of him there are two women dressed in what looks like a Walgreens devil costume. Like
they're called Satan women. I was like, he's got two Satan women and a weird Igor in the corner.
Yeah, that Igor in the corner was very odd. I watched a little like baby YouTube video of another sweet man who's like, I watched this film too, and he explained that this intro probably was when the movie was re-released later on in theaters, so that he could be like, hello, it's me, welcome, because at this point he was like, because of this movie he became a horror icon.
Yeah.
And like full cult status. Like,
yeah.
It almost like my sweet friend Jeff said, is he the Joe Bob Briggs of Brazil? Who
Sure.
Joe Bob Briggs was a comedian who used to be a host of a horror movie night on TNT back in the days. Or like Elvira, you know how like there were these characters that used to be like, welcome, let's watch a creepy movie, and then they'd show up in between commercial breaks and be like, are you enjoying this? Are you creeped out? And like give you like a fun or give you like fun trivia or whatever. So that's basically who he became. And those were his TV shows, and every time he went on TV he was like, I'm José do Caixão or whatever. and so like,
got it.
So I think when they re-released this movie, at this point that's who he was. So he's like with his long nails, which are very unnerving, and I do not like it.
They're pretty gross.
Yeah, so he's got a top hat on, and he's like, okay, if you dare, we're gonna watch this movie, and here's my friend Igor, and I will take your soul and your soul. And I was like, this.
And like random like jump scares, or he's like, it's aparecidos, or not in Spanish, but you know, he's very dramatic. One little observation about him too, which is so stupid, but he's missing one nail on his pointer finger.
I know, I saw that too. I was like, girl, you couldn't get a full set. What's
like,
the
come
deal?
On, just the one little nail. Somebody could have found that thing. Anyway, let's highly recommend though, if you can find this on YouTube, so you can watch that little intro.
Because the intro is not subtitled, but the movie is. And also, just so everybody knows, this movie came out in 1964. So like it is black and white. It is an old movie. And
it is low budge.
Low budge. My guy sold his car and his house to pay for this film. Right. And he had zero experience making movies, and he was just like, I don't give a fuck. His dad used to own a movie theater in São Paulo, and so that's why he fell in love with films. And he's like, guess what? I'm gonna put a top hat on, and I'm gonna be Zé do Caixão.
Yeah.
So this is also based off of a dream he had, that he was being dragged into a grave by a grave digger or a funeral guy, and then he was like, "Great, I'm gonna make a movie out of this."
From what I understood, like, so he's clearly quite young in this. Like, I'm assuming early 20s, maybe mid 20s.
Sure.
And something I learned, which I was gonna save for trivia later, but I'm just gonna say it now, is like, when he was 18, in 1953, at the age of 18, he founded Cinematográfica Atlas, the Atlas Film Company. So he acquired a synagogue, an abandoned synagogue, and he transformed that into a film studio and academy where he gave acting lessons. And anyway, so he was very motivated. Like, this guy was like very, very into film, super go-getter at a young age, making movies, from what I understand, since he was actually a kid. Now, granted, home videos with like his friends and neighbors,
sure,
like we used to do, but like clearly is a huge like film guy and clearly huge horror fan.
Also,
So
you guys, Jonny and I used to make movies together when we were in high school. We used to sit around each other's houses and write a scary movie script and like just giggle the night away. Anyways, that aside, here we go. A Meia-Noite Levarei sua Alma. Once we have the intro of him like being like spooky Halloween, we cut to Zé do Caixão himself, him and the young. It's the beginning of the movie, right? And this is where he gives that monologue where he's like, "Did you write it down?"
I wrote it in English. I wrote the gist of it.
Go for
Life is the beginning of death. Death is the end of life. Existence is the continuation of blood, and blood is the reason to exist, which in other words means I want a son.
Yeah, so he basically, in so many words, is like, I don't give a shit about life or death. Like, from the top, he's basically, it's somewhere in Wikipedia or somewhere, they're like, it's very Nietzsche.
Right, which I know much about. Nietzsche.
Girl, are you kidding me? But he's like, heaven, hell, eat it. I don't believe in it. Fuck you. All I need is my fucking son to carry on my blood, and that's how I will keep going, basically, or whatever. So he gives this like zoomed in monologue, and then we go into the cheesiest credits I've ever seen in my life. And
I loved the credits.
Oh my God, the credits were great. It was so cheesy and hilarious. It was every character's death scene off the top.
So you see the way they're gonna die right from the top with like a haunted house soundtrack.
It's just like,
ooh, like werewolf in the back and wind and. But I was like,
owl. Can we talk about the owl?
The owl throughout.
Throughout, there's just like images of like spooky branches and whatever. At one point, there's just like a superimposed cartoon owl. Not a real owl, not a stuffed owl, just like, here's a cartoon of an owl. Ooh, and like the font was just like, it was precious.
The font was so good, but like the way they like tore away the font was very cool.
I mean, for a 1964 movie, like they'd show the names of like whoever was doing their thing, and then they'd have like, it was almost like they put paper flames on it and like made it disappear. I honestly was like, how did they do this? It looked
cool.
It looked cool. It looked basic. Like it looked like arts and crafty almost.
Yes.
So once the credits are done, we are in like a space that has like skulls, and we're like inside a room, and then a woman shows up and she's like,
literally like this, like,
hello.
Listening, she just like slowly
slides up her head into shot, and she's like, hello, welcome, you're gonna watch this movie. And she basically does the same intro that he had done as the old man, like, but in this movie. Yeah. And she's like, oh, get ready. Are you gonna be afraid? Well, you better. And she literally says, like, she's like fourth wall broken, and she's not only that, but she's like, you're in a movie theater right now. Are you going to be, if you are afraid, leave now. If not, get ready to be scared for your life. And you're just like, okay, ma'am.
This particular intro, I loved it so much.
Hold on.
Please.
And she's holding on to that skull that is obviously made of paper mache. Like it's somebody's arts and craft project. And she's just like, and yes, I'm holding the skull. And are you fearful for your life?
This woman is such a good, she gives you such a good, like, classic witch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's over the top and ridiculous, but her voice is perfect.
So good.
Her laugh as a witch is classic witch laugh.
From those soundtracks you get that are just like, play this while trick-or-treaters come around, and it's just like,
Yes, it's so fucking good. And I'm gonna admit a little something. So this intro, I had trouble understanding what Zé do Caixão said at the top as older Zé do Caixão on YouTube
Yeah.
because my Portuguese is not very good. So with these subtitles, I could finally like kind of see what she's saying. It gave me like an idea of The Ring, where she's like, "Don't watch this movie because you know bad. It's like you'll be scared and bad things will happen to you."
For you. Yeah.
And I was like, "That's pretty. That it's honestly dated, cheesy, but effective."
Effective. If you're like,
Yeah.
okay, if you're in Brazil, if you're fucking from the backwoods, and you're like, today I'm gonna go to the movies. It's 1964. I'm gonna see what? Oh, a Meia-Noite Levarei a sua Alma. Great. Let me check this sweet film out. And then that fucking bitch comes out with her fucking paper mache skull, and she's like, you better get ready. I'd be freaked out.
Deeply Catholic. Catholic country, correct? Right?
Yes, and not just Catholic, Christian in general. Like Brazilian people, if they're not, it's every format of like believing in Christ, and it's just like, and this movie was definitely like he was spitting in the face of religion.
And apparently this movie was even banned in some states of Brazil.
Yes. Well,
so even more terrifying.
What I saw in the research, I think IMDb said that it was released during the year where like censorship was like not around or something like that. That it was based by state. So some states were like, cool, show this all the time, and some states were like, this is the devil work, we don't need it, no thank you, bye-bye. So like depending on where you're living, you're like, whoa, or like, I can't, it's taboo. So just like we were talking about earlier, like how like hosts of horror things, this gave me like Crypt Keeper. I wrote down like the Crypt Keeper, this lady and her welcome, no fourth wall, but it's also a warning, like, you know, watch out. Okay, that's it. That wasn't that great. Anyways,
no, I love it. The Crypt Keeper, which I love. Like it was before the Crypt Keeper, so who's to like say what kind of influence this movie had?
Absolutely,
horror generations,
and also as a cold open, that's a great like way of introducing this stuff. And I thought it was really great, like in the credit stuff, you see the credits, she comes out, she does that stuff, and she's like, watch out, woo, and then she brings up the skull and like zooms it into the camera, and it says directed by. And so I was like, this guy, like, even though he was amateur, independent, not knowing what he was doing, I love that he's like, I'm gonna let everybody get this feel, and then I'm gonna be like, boom, I did this shit. I love that. So we open in this, so once we see his name, cut to a cemetery. It's daytime. Somebody is burying somebody, and the family's crying. You hear women weeping, all this stuff. It's like, you know, whatever. And then the camera pans over, and there's this dude in a top hat and cape, all in black, standing there. And we see Zé do Caixão, like almost what is it, like standing over this is his domain, this is his land. It's very ominous. And then he walks into like the crowd of people that are crying over this dead body, and he's like, I'm so sorry for your loss, and he walks away. And it's like, okay, my guy,
but his intro here, like they play, because okay, we're crying at the funeral, but then it's like do do do, they give you some spooky music, and you can see people like looking over, but when it cuts to him, it's just like a cut, and he's standing there looking like, to me he looked like a fucking bat. And I was like, wait, did he like pop up out of thin air? Like, is that the idea? But I don't think that's what it was. But he very nonchalantly interrupts this funeral.
I thought it was so funny because he just kind of like cuts through the people like a hot knife through butter, and he's like, Doña, whatever your name is, Dona, whatever, I'm sorry for your loss. And it's like, who the fuck are you, bro?
Yeah, but it's literally like, sorry for your loss, bye.
And so he leaves, and he goes into his home, it looks like, where there are literally hands sticking out of the wall, and he hangs his coat on these like porcelain hands. And I was like, what the fuck?
I fully expected there to be a Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, like,
grab it.
Like hand grabs
grab
the
those
coat,
jackets.
and Zay would have been like, thank you, hand.
Thank you so much. And he walks in and he's like, fuck these fucking people. I'm tired of hearing them crying and moaning about their dead people. What a bunch of idiots. And somehow through this like monologue of him shitting on people that have lost loved ones, we find out that he's basically the funeral director, or he's like what is the term for somebody who's in charge of like the dead people in town?
Is he a mortician?
Maybe mortician, not grave digger, but like he's in charge of basically when people die, they bring him to him and he like does his thing. So mortician, I think.
You're dead, send it to him. He'll clean the body. He'll put the makeup on. He'll put it in the coffin. He'll put it in the ground. Like he'll do all of it.
Which is why his name is Zé do Caixão, which means Joe of the coffin. So like he's in charge of this small town's dead people, basically. Yeah. But he's a dick, and he's like, everybody's moaning and groaning about what a bunch of idiots. And his wife, ¿cómo se llama?
Lechina?
Letina. Lechina. Lenita. Yeah. Oh, she comes in and she's like, don't be, it's okay, whatever. Here, come have dinner. And she serves him a plate of food. And he's like, where's the meat? Like the old lady from the Wendy's commercial.
Temper tantrum immediately.
From jump.
Temper tantrum. Right from the get-go. And when he asks for the food, it's not like, hey, honey, I'm home. Where can I have some dinner? He's like, lechina, comida. Like, he's like, now.
Yeah. Lenita, minha comida, cadê? Where is it?
Right.
Lechina. No, we're going to call her Lechina for the rest of this thing, I bet.
Are we sure it's Lenita?
Lenita. And she's like, honey, there's no meat because it's Sexta-feira Santa, which is a Holy Friday, basically. So, like, it's not Holy Friday. I kept saying Good Friday. It's basically the Friday where you're not allowed to eat meat, basically.
Right.
And he's like, fuck you, bitch. I don't give a fuck if it's fucking Friday for God or Friday for the devil. I want fucking meat. So I'm going to leave this house. I'm going to buy a fucking full lamb and I'm going to eat it. And I'm going to eat meat, whether it's people meat or whatever meat. I'm eating meat. I'm doing whatever I want.
And I have to say this very sadly because I discovered also that José Marins died
in February, yes.
So rest in peace, sir.
R.I.P.
You. But I literally wrote, I'm 5 minutes in and I hate him.
Yeah, he's, okay, off the bat, everybody needs to know this guy is a fucking dick.
Oh.
Throughout the movie, he is such an asshole. I wrote down several times, what a bully. He was legitimately a bully. As he's leaving, his best friend, Antonio, and his fiance, Terezinha, show up to his house and they're like, hey, what's up? Like they just
how's it going, dude? Why does he have a best friend? But he does.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, how come this motherfucker has a best friend? Like throughout the movie, he's like, I would do anything for Antonio. I'm like, no. So anyway, so him and Antonio, and like he kind of gives a weird eye to Terezinha, and then he's like, I'm gonna go buy a fucking lamb because I don't give a fuck. We cut to him sitting at this window, seeing the procession of of like prayer and priest and like candle, and he is legitimately holding a leg of lamb at the window on purpose and like
laughing at people.
The priest is like, Santa Maria Madre, like this is the devil.
Ring with holy water.
Yeah, and he's like, no. And my guy is just chomping on meat. Like,
yep.
I don't give a hot fuck.
But then Lenita shows up. Is that it? Lenita?
Lenita, you got it. Lenita.
Lenita shows up, also helps him with his coat. And she's like, I know where you're going. You're going after Terezinha. I saw how you looked at her. I'm not a woman to be treated this way. And what does he say to her? He literally lightly gives her a little smack on the face and is like, you've said quite enough for now.
Yeah.
So just continue to be shown like what kind of a man we're going to be spending the next hour and a half with.
Just a garbage person. And then she also said, she goes, you don't mess around with that for the sake of your friendship with Antonio. Like, he's your best friend. Don't mess around with his fiance. And that's when he was like, he says, você sabe que eu não gosto dessas dramáticas, which basically means like, bitch, I don't like your drama.
But it's your drama, sir.
It's you.
You're the one who is starting the drama. Just blame it on her, though. Just go ahead. Yeah. Blame it on Lenita, please.
And so he goes outside and he runs into Terezinha and like a gentleman friend, not Antonio, who is like, I'm escorting her home because Antonio is gonna go pick her up a little later. And then Zé do Caixão was like, don't you have an appointment, sir? Like, I'll take her. I know that you have an appointment. And this is where we first see his effect on like, well, not really, because we see it in the procession and of the people that he's like got an effect on the town. You can tell this guy is afraid of him. He's like, oh yeah, you're right. I do have an appointment. I guess, is this okay, Terezinha, that he's taking you? And she's like, I guess. And he's like,
and it's great. It's not like mind control.
No, it's intimidation. So as they're walking home, he basically like is like, oh yes, you're lovely, this is great. And then he stops and he's like, you're not a woman for Antonio, you're a woman for me. And he basically assaults her. And then they do all these zoom ins onto his mouth that I was like, please zoom away.
But the way that also he controls his mouth is
it's just like
quivery and very strange. And he brings his quivering lips and smelly looking beard.
It's so gross. Face,
but she fucking bites him.
Yeah, she's like, eat a dick, bro. I don't want to fucking kiss you. Get your fucking weird quivering mouth away from me, you fucking gross bitch. So she bites him and he's like, oh, I see that you're a spicy woman or whatever. He's just like,
he's like, you're a snake with the face of an angel
face. Yeah. Okay, I wrote down the nails like every 5 seconds. So apparently in real life he had really long thumbnails, and like the makeup artist was like, my dude, we're gonna have to give you like a full set. So for the rest of the movie, it's just these like long acrylics, and he's constantly touching people and like doing things like showcasing these nails. It's so gross.
But also, like, again, RIP, full respect, sir, but why are your thumbnails long by choice? Like,
why, sir?
Let's just not do this.
Sir.
But whoever was like, okay, you've got creepy long thumbnails, it was a good idea, whoever was like, let's give you the nails, because it's gross and creepy.
Ugh, the worst. So he goes to his local bar, and literally like he enters and you can tell immediately everyone's like, oh fuck, here's this fucking guy.
Not again.
José do Caixão. And Maria, the sweet little bartending girl, is like, oh God, he's
not
here.
Again.
And like, she's like,
he just sucks the energy out of the room. He's like the ultimate party pooper. You're
absolutely.
Just like, this
everyone's like,
guy again.
And everybody kind of like moves out of his way, and he walks in like he fucking owns the place. He's like, it is well, if it's not everybody here that I know. And everybody's like,
but it's like, it's the kind of thing where like, nobody wants you here, dude. Nobody's paying attention to you. Leave.
Read the room, ho.
Also, when he asks Maria for wine, it's like, Maria, wine.
Yeah.
Never a please, never any respect, nothing of the sort. He literally asks some dude, I guess a barkeep, to be like, go home and tell Lenita to send me the rest of the lamb.
Okay. I laughed so hard at that. He's not seamless, ho, to your house.
This person?
Who is this guy?
Just random, irritating, and also great ways to show that this guy sucks.
And he has like an odd power over people. That's the thing. It's not just like, because it's not that people are just like, ugh, he's weird. They're like, he's weird, and they're still doing the things that he says because they're afraid of him, basically.
Yeah.
Like Maria says to her like dad or whatever who owns the bar and behind the counter, and she's like, he scares me. And he says, não deixe perceber isso, senão coisas vão se complicar, which means don't let him notice that, because or else things will get complicated. And it's like, okay, so we know this guy has a reputation in this town for being a weirdo or like causing
trouble.
So then he goes over to a table with a bunch of dudes and he's like, hello, gentlemen. It seems as though you're playing cards. And they're like, yeah, great. Sure. And he's like, can I sit in? And they're like, okay. And
no. Mind your own business.
Mind
Nobody
your business.
wants you here.
No.
Anyway, he sits down.
He sits down and they're playing a game and he's betting a whole bunch. And one of the guys is betting with him. And then at the end, Zé do Caixão wins. And he's like, all right. And the guy's like, I don't have the money, dude. And Zé do Caixão, he basically just grabs a bottle of wine, smashes it, and just smacks it down like the broken side on the fingers of the dude and cuts two of them off. And then he's like, call the doctor, tell him to send me the bill. He must have had an accident. And I was like, oh, what a douche.
Everybody, like, we all saw that this was an accident, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's like, yes, of course, don't worry. Like, we're afraid of you. We're not going to say anything. I must say, though, that the little, maybe because it was in black and white, but the practical effects of him cutting the fingers off were like, I was like, oh, that's pretty good.
In general, I think in this movie, like the few handful of times that we got like an up close shot of like something gross and nasty for 1964, I think they nailed it.
Me too. And I'm also surprised at the fact that it was like close-up shot of this guy getting his fingers cut off with a broken bottle of wine. I was like, wow. I didn't think you would see anything like that long ago. But there it was, and it was done, pretty well. So
I agree. Well, it's funny because I was looking in when they were talking about the censorship in Brazil and the States and whatever, they said that a lot of people didn't have that big of a problem with the violent part of it, but mostly it was the religious, like blasphemous part that they didn't like. So they're like, sure, chop those fingers off, but please don't talk about how you like the devil or you don't like heaven at all or you're
or you don't believe in any of it. Right.
Exactly. So then dude who went to pick up his lamb comes back with the lamb and he's like, hey buddy, you over there, don't you want to eat this fucking lamb? And the guy's like, it's holy, it's fucking Sexta-feira Santa. I don't want, like, I'm not supposed to, I'm not allowed. And fucking Zé do Caixão was like, fuck it, eat this meat, eat it. And he basically like shoves meat in this guy's face.
Mind your own business.
Mind your business, bro.
So then this doctor arrives, and who is a very handsome doctor, by the way. I was like, oh, look at this cute guy.
Very handsome. I agree.
Yeah, lovely, great head of hair, great look, very handsome. And we've already established that Zé, for some reason, is like, I guess as the funeral director or the mortician, whatever he is, he must make a lot of money because he's like, I'll pay for the fingers that I severed. So
yeah. I'm sure if he's the only guy in town, then everybody, and I think that's the other reason why everybody is intimidated by him, is that especially in small towns that are like specifically very religious and stuff, death is scary. So the person that's in charge of death in this town probably has a lot of hold over these people, and I'm sure that's a big reason why they're still afraid. So when the doc comes in and he's like, whatever, send the bill to me, doc. It's like, ugh, Jesus Christ. We can't do anything because, or else is he going to bury my grandma? Because I'd like him to, but like, fuck, you know?
Right. Yeah, he's got like the darkness on his side, plus he's got money. So it's like, let's just not fuck with this guy. Next up, he's like, more wine, Maria. No, please. And again, he's just putting those fingernails all over everything. Like he touches Maria and she's so uncomfortable. And who turns out to be one of my favorite characters, this bald man.
Yo, the bald man was like, I'm tired of this bullshit. This fucking guy coming into our bar, fucking who the fuck? He's touching Maria, that's my niece or whatever the fuck, and he's like, no. So he gets
something about this.
Yeah, so let's do something about it. And everybody's like, it's Zé do Caixão. He's creepy. I don't want to. And he's like, fuck this noise. And he gets up and he's like, hey, dick. Get your fucking hands off of fucking Maria, ho. And Zé do Caixão is like, oh, we fighting? And then there's this fight scene that I laughed so hard when he got up on the bar and like the foot coming down from the bar.
A little like, first of all, bald guy did a good throw in because he tossed Zé on the floor and I was like, thank you, was waiting for that.
Yeah.
But the teeny little like, kick to the belly and then like a little tap on the back. I was like, oh, this guy's he's down. That really affected the bald guy. But also, this is the first time we've gotten a Zé eye close up, but this is the first time we see like the Jekyll Hyde effect.
So throughout the movie, we see that they do a zoom in on the eyes, and then they through like the magic of cinema, which is literally they just like kind of fade in and fade out into another set of eyes that are like veiny and like bloodshot, and it's like, oh, it's the anger has overtaken him. It's almost like the Hulk, you know? He's like, I'm mad now, and so his eyes turn bloodshot and they cut out, and then he's like fighting and climbing and kicking, and then he grabs a whip and he whips the shit out of this man.
Now he does whip the shit out of this man. However, this bald guy is a good size larger than Zé do Caixão, and I'm like, get up, take a few licks, like it's gonna hurt. But fucking get up off the floor. You take a good swing at this guy and you could knock him out cold.
No.
Knock his scrawny, stinky beard ass on the floor. But he's just like, crying like, please, mercy.
And Zé do Caixão is like, hiya, hiya, hiya.
Yep.
And then finally somebody's like, Antonio. Antonio comes in, his BFF. BFF Antonio comes in, he's like, stop, you're gonna kill him. And so finally José do Caixão is like, all right, I'll fucking stop. And then he's like, come on. I guess I'll stop. Because he leaves the bar and he's like, well, I'll see you guys later. Fucking there's something so douchey about him, you know what I mean? He might as well have like done finger guns.
Says like a little, I couldn't even like, I was like, all right, enough, get out of here, because
me too, but he says
like one liner or something and I'm like, fuck you, just leave, please.
So at this point we get home and with him, he goes home and he basically is like, Lenita can't have kids. Like, he just out of nowhere is having like a mini monologue or like thinking about it. And he's like, she can't bear me children. Women are worthless if they can't like continue the bloodline or like shit like that.
So he bumps into Antonio and Terezinha. I don't know how they get onto the subject. I don't remember, but he's like, a woman who can't bear a child needs no care.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill Lanita. Okay, I'm going to kill her. And then I'm going to just go ahead and have a baby with Terezinha. And literally he turns around and there's just a bottle of ether right there. And he's like, great, just going to grab this. He grabs this bottle of ether and he's like, boop, 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 with a rag. And he's like, hey, girl, what you doing? And she's like, I'm sorry, I was so jealous earlier and I accused you of doing this and this and that. All I want to do is love you, honey. Like, you're the best man for me. I love you. And he's like, oh, you're such a sweet baby. Boom, face full of ether. She passes out. She wakes up and she's got like cotton and tape on her mouth. She's like in her underpants for some reason. And she's lying down and he's like, hello. He's just like has a jar and he releases a huge tarantula and he's like, your sacrifice will be lovely to watch. What a spectacle your death will be, or whatever, like creepy shit like that. Releases this spider on her. The spider bites her. She fucking dies. So he kills.
You don't see this spider bite her, but this scene was horrifying to watch because that spider was huge. That is a huge Brazilian spider that they found in the jungle somewhere.
Not the jungle, because as a person who has been to visit my dad who still lives in Brazil, one time just walking around, I looked at the ground and I was like, oh, that's a full-on furry tarantula.
No.
Yeah, bitch. At some point, we assume that it bit her and killed her because he just was like, he literally leans down right in front of her face and is like, ka, 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 you died, bitch.
There was something I did notice here that I want to come to later when we talk about our trivia stuff. But his laughter here, it reminded me so much of Freddy Krueger. And especially Freddy Krueger in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. However, let's save that for later. But it just sounded so much like it to me. We'll come back.
I love that. Cut to him saying, Lenita has been dead for 15 days, and it's now him and Antonio, like, having a conversation. He's hanging out with his BFF again, and Antonio says, do you want to come with me and Terezinha to see this gypsy? Because we're going to get married next week, and Terezinha just wants to, like, make sure that our future is clear and whatever. And then Zé is like, women, am I right? They always want to fucking... You know what I mean? Like, he fully is like, as mulheres sempre tem que saber, like, the women and fucking ladies. Fuck you, bro.
Well, okay, first of all, Antonio, why would you invite him to this? And why do you keep I guess, like, Antonio is especially, like, saintly, where he's just like, my poor evil friend, nobody likes him. I want, like, let me include him in everything I possibly can. But it's like, you couldn't have done this one with just you and your lady. Like, this might get pretty personal because you're going to go see a fortune teller.
Yeah, you don't need to bring your fucking weirdo black-wearing, cape-wearing, top hat-wearing friend.
Zé also says, yeah, I'll come because it's going to be really fun to see you stupid assholes under the spell of a witch.
It's just like anytime anybody says anything about what they believe in or something that they feel, he comes in and he's like, you're a fucking idiot because you believe in shit, bro. And it's like, nobody asked you. So the three best friends, the three musketeers, walk into, and we return to the lady from the beginning, the gypsy woman witch that's like, you're gonna be afraid. She's the gypsy, and she's like, welcome everyone, come in, make yourselves comfortable. And right off the bat, Terezinha's like, I just wanted to. She's like, shut the fuck up. Let me fucking tell you what's gonna fucking happen. And she says, she's like, listen, okay, Terezinha, stay with the woman you love. You will find death. Or if you don't, you will find death. Antonio, by midnight, you'll be dead. Zé do Caixão, you're gonna burn in hell. She literally goes down the line and is like, bam, bam, bam.
Especially shocking that she turns to Antonio and is like, by the way, just give everything up, make amends, make peace with it, because you're basically already dead, my friend.
BT Dubs, you dying, ho.
Soon. Like, it's happening.
Like, it's late right now. You better get your affairs in order because you're dying.
So, of course, Zé is like, this is stupid. You're an idiot. Everybody's an idiot. I'm the only one who's not an idiot. And that when the bruxa is like, and you asshole, hell's coming for you. And did you notice also, I'm pretty sure every single time the bruxa is around, there's like a werewolf sound in the back.
Yes, there's like a no.
Yeah, it's a weird werewolf sound. And
in
also,
general, the sound, like the the sound effects that are going on are just like literally from a tape that somebody was like 50 horror sounds to play when trick-or-treaters are coming around.
Haunted house soundtrack, like ghosts, chains, werewolves, and wind. Like
whoo.
But I love that so
Me
much.
too. I loved that it was just like a random woman in the background being like,
So this gypsy woman straight up doesn't charge them because she's like, when death is involved, what does she say?
I loved this line. I love this line where she's like, they're like, okay, where Zé do Caixão was like, fuck you, this sucks, and he gets up to leave, and everybody's like, yeah, we're gonna leave too. And Antonio's like, how much do we owe you? And she goes, listen, if I predict death, no charge.
I mean, it would be rather rude.
It would be, as a business person, yes, sure, that is a very polite thing for you to do. But I love that she's like, the rules of the ether and like whatever like thing I'm practicing, it says that if I see death, I shouldn't charge.
Yeah, so free of charge, guys.
Enjoy these sweet predictions I gave to you. You're gonna die, you're gonna go to hell, no charge. So then Antonio and Zé go over to Antonio's house. Right, and Zé do Caixão was like, how can I have belief? Like, how can I have disbelief? Or how can I have faith if I've never had faith or belief to begin with? So basically it's
kind of like backstory-ish that we get. Like, he was never raised with religion, or he never had it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of idea we get.
And he's like prophesizing. He's like, I don't give a fuck. All this shit is bullshit. Everybody and their belief sucks, whatever. And sweet Antonio is like, okay, but like, I love Terezinha and I'm going to get married to her. And I know that she loves me and I believe in God. I believe that things are good. I believe that, this is what I believe. Basically, he's just giving this like tiny monologue of the things that he believes in. And like the camera is following Zé do Caixão as he stands up behind his friend. He looks down at the fireplace and picks up like a fire poker, it seems like. And then as this sweet man is like, yeah, I know, I get it that you believe this, but that you don't believe in anything. But I believe this because, love and life and God or whatever. And then Zé do Caixão is like, smash. Believe this, ho? Do you believe in this? Because I just fucking killed you.
It was like the one moment where I was like, okay, dude, I get it. Like, you can believe in your own thing too. Mm-hmm. Like, it's okay if you don't believe in whatever, if you choose not to believe, that's fine. But the thing that makes it different is that for everybody else in the world, like, he's like, that makes me smarter than you. It makes me stronger than you. Everybody else is an idiot because they choose to believe something different than me. And it's like, no, dude.
So then he kills he smashes this fucking thing on his best friend, his supposed best friend. And then he's like, oh, okay, there's blood here. It looks like I've killed him. I think this might be bad. So he like drags his body to the bathtub. He like makes it look like he smashed his head on the side of the bathtub, because he puts his body in the tub. He turns the faucet on, and then Antonio kind of like comes to, because it turns out he didn't kill him. And then fucking Zé do Caixão drowns his ass. So he's like, cool, I'm going to leave it like this. It's going to look like an accident. What a shame. Bye. And then he leaves.
And now, of course, Terezinha shows up however many hours later, and she finds her fucking fiance drowned, dead in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Great. Nice jobs there.
We cut to him at the fuzz. He's at the police, and he's like, oh, what a terrible accident. Can't believe this accident.
I do believe at this point, though, that the fuzz, the detective or whoever is there, is like, you're a suspect because you're the last person to see him alive.
That is absolutely right. He's like, and he says, I'm sorry to tell you that you're a suspect because you're the last person. And he's like, I know, I understand. He was my best friend, but what a terrible thing. And also send him over to me, and I'll make sure that, everything is fine for when we bury him. And then we go to the funeral, and we're literally in the catacomb where they're putting him in, and there's the people there, everybody's crying. They open the casket for some reason, and Terezinha's like, Antonio, and she's crying and terrible. And then Zé do Caixão was there, and she sees him, and she's like, assassino, you murderer. She knows it's him. She knows. Yeah. So after the funeral, we go to the bar, and everybody at the bar is like, terrible that this has happened. We need to keep an eye out for Terezinha, because like, not only did her fucking fiance just die, but her dad isn't in town because her mom's in the hospital, so she's alone, and they're like, she could be in trouble. And then boom, there he is.
Yeah. Now, this was another moment that bald guy, I was like, everybody listen to bald guy, because he's like, why don't we just fucking run this asshole out of town? Yes, bald guy.
Yeah.
Listen to bald guy.
Listen to the bald guy.
Zé shows up, and everybody's like, oh, okay, well,
here's this fucking dude again. Right. So he goes over to the bar, and he's like, wine now. And then the dad, it seems, is like, sure, but I'm so sorry. No. He says, Maria, wine now. And then the dad starts handing it, and he's like, I asked for Maria to give it to me. So Maria's like pouring the wine and he like grabs her face, and again, the nails. Anytime the hands go to people's faces or whatever, and he like pulls her close, it's so uncomfortable. Don't touch her. He's like, how much for that bird? Like your bar bird that you have hanging up at the window.
There's a bird in the bar, but they've got a bar bird.
They've got a bar bird. It's a tiny little canary, and he's like, how much? And then the bar guy is like, I mean, it's not for sale. It's our bird. And he's like, I'll give you 2,000, whatever the money in Brazil was at the time. It wasn't reais, because that's what we have now, but like, whatever it was, how about 2,000? And the guy's like, hell yeah, 2,000, take that bird. So he takes the bird, and he heads on over. Like, Antonio is hot in that coffin, and he is like, bye, heading over to Terezinha's with this bird. And he's like, tuk tuk tuk, hello. And she's like, oh, what are you doing here? It's hella late. And he's like, I brought you a gift. And she's like, that's very nice of you. Good night. And he's like, hold on. And he just lets himself in.
Oh, like she literally is like, no. And he's like, where are your manners?
Where are your manners? Made me want to blow my brains out. So he's in Terezinha's house, and he's like, here's this bird, and basically he just assaults her. Before he assaults her, he's like, I'm going to throw this bird out. And she's like, don't. So she takes the bird out of the cage and she's holding on to it. And that's when he like assaults her. And she's like, fuck you. I don't want to fucking be with you. And he just beats the shit out of her. He slaps her and then is like legit punching her, like fucking her up, dude. He like smacks her around and then she lands on the couch. And when he's on the couch, he does this thing where he like licks or kisses his knuckle and then he fucking punches her, and that's when there's like blood coming out of her nose, and then he's like, this is how I want you, basically, and he fully rapes her.
Again, we get a disgusting quivering lip blood kiss.
Oh my god, he kisses her fucking blood mouth.
Horrifying.
Disgusting. And then he like, the camera follows, he's like with his long nails, again the nails, he's like going down and like touching her leg, and she's like they're vulnerable, and his hand like goes up her skirt and his hand on her ass. It cuts to her other hand and he's raping her, or we're assuming that that's what's happening, and she basically squeezes, the canary is still in her hand and she squeezes it to fucking death.
Aside from being like horrific and very violent, was also particularly like, I'm just surprised that this was 1963, 64, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was fucking racy. I was very surprised.
Well, here's the thing. And here's something I think in the future of this podcast that everybody knows. Brazilian film and TV is very open and very free with nudity and stuff like that. And so, like, doing the research for this podcast, most of the films are almost considered porn. Very specifically, the horror genre, too. So, like, I wasn't surprised, but I was like, I guess the time period was the shocking part for me. I was like, how early on did Brazil get so, like, lenient about censorship, basically? So I was ready for nudity. Because that's just in my mind. Like, growing up in Brazil, I grew up in Brazil, y'all. Like the soap operas, like the 7 p.m. soap operas often had sex scenes or like boobs and asses. Like Carnival, it's just constant. Like they're super chill with nudity. But this moment in particular, because he's so gross and slimy, I was like, I hate this.
Oh,
and of course, awful. It's a rape scene, so you're like, ugh, gross. But like,
it makes sense. Like hearing you say that, remembering, because I also spent part of my childhood in Brazil. There is just kind of like an openness to nudity, which is interesting in such a religious country. I was still just like, holy shit, like this is.
I mean, we're desensitized. We've lived most of our lives in the United States, where everything is like, well, if your tits and ass are out, then you're fucking. I mean, just up until now, we have Cardi B being like WAP, and everybody's still being like
oh, my pearls. Ah! Yeah.
So then we cut to after the rape, and he's like, you're lovely, you're amazing. And she's like, I'm going to kill myself. And this is where she basically says, bitch, I'm not only am I going to kill myself, but I'm going to fucking come for you. You better get ready. Fucking this again. He's like, oh, you think so? Middle fingers in the air.
He says to her, so he says two particular things to her in this scene. When she's literally bloody, hair is all over the place, holding up her dress or a sheet or whatever, like she's literally just been raped and beaten.
And still bloody-nosed and crazy.
Horrible. And so when first of all, she says, so I'm going to kill myself. And he's like, all women say the same thing.
And then they regret it.
And he's like, of course you would say this right now. I'll see you tomorrow. But then when she's like, I'm going to come get your soul and take you to hell, you fucking asshole, once I kill myself. He's like, if there are women like you there, I welcome that with like open arms. And it's just like you. But the thing is, I believed him at this point. Oh, he doesn't care if he goes to hell. However,
he leaves and he's like strolling home, and he comes across what it looked like to me was like macumba or like black magic. It looked like there was like a weird doll and candles. And he says, when he said this line, I was like, I kind of want this on a t-shirt. He goes, hoje é meu dia de sorte, até o diabo está aqui. Which is, today's my lucky day, even the devil is here. And I was like, what? The fuck?
I totally misunderstood because I thought it was, again, like you said, macumba or some sort of magic circle. But then I was like, oh, no.
We should say macumba is in Brazilian culture. It's very much like the way that Santeria is in the Spanish-speaking countries and is considered like black magic. In Brazil, the equivalent would be like macumba, and macumba is the same kind of thing. Like it comes from like deities and like gods and goddesses and stuff, and it's often considered bad because it's not Christian, you know what I mean? And like so he's just like ha 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 ha, and then he walks a little bit more and we're at the cemetery, and then he fully has a full moment where he climbs upon like somebody's tomb and he's like, hello, dead people. He might as well have grabbed the microphone and been like, everybody out here, how's it going? Like he's fully taunting the cemetery and is like, and it's so cocky and arrogant. Take me to hell. You can't do anything to me, bitch. I'm alive. You're dead. Vocês estão mortos. Mortos.
This scene is not like, it's not like 30 seconds. Like they give him, well, he's the director. So he gives himself, it feels like 5 to 10 where he's like, mortos, vem pra mim, or whatever. My Portuguese is terrible, but belting to the dead.
There are several scenes in this film where he's like, okay, just keep rolling. I'm just going to do my thing. And he's like,
improvise. Just
fully being like, bitch.
Yep.
I don't care. It's just fucking giving face. Like, get the fuck out of here. And then we cut to a little kid screaming at a window. And what we see is that Terezinha has hung herself, and she has said what she was gonna. She has done what she said. She fucking kills herself. At the screen, we see her suicide note. The detective is reading this note, and it said, with these few lines, I ask my parents' forgiveness for my condemnable act. There's nobody to blame in this tragedy. I couldn't support the weight on my shoulders. If I must have a sentence for the reason of my death, I'll be the judge, and wherever I may be, justice will be fulfilled. Terezinha. And then the fuzz is like, we can't charge Zé do Caixão because she basically leaves a note and says why she did it and doesn't give his name.
Why do you think she leaves that note?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, because we get to him and he's like, she's dead. And then he even says, curious, she didn't accuse me. I think my theory is that she's like, it's not going to be of this world. It's going to be of the other world, and it's going to be me. That's why I think. So we're at the funeral for Terezinha, and somebody is like, she wanted to be buried next to Antonio. And so it's literally Antonio's casket is next to hers. And then they close hers and they're like, she wanted to be buried next to the love of her life. And the doctor is like, And then we cut to the doctor being like, something's fishy over here. Like, I'm going to do another autopsy on Antonio because it seems like it's fucking homicide. And then cut to, like, camera pans and there's Zé do Caixão being like, good evening, doctor.
Right, here I am. It's pretty immediate what happens next. So the doctor is clear, because everybody in this town is terrified of Zé. And so Zé is like, I have to make sure that you don't see what should not be seen.
And then we see that the nails finally come into play, and he pulls a fucking Three Stooges situation, and he literally is like he puts those fingers towards the camera, like,
and the doctor's just like,
wow, the most handsome man. Like, he was so, like, that scene, we really got to see him, and I was like, God, he's beautiful. And then cut to, and he's like fully blinded, and he's like, no, my eyes. And then he's like, and oh, is this a bottle of alcohol? He pours some alcohol on the doctor and then sets him ablaze. Zé do Caixão goes home, and he's like, just freshly murdered somebody, feeling great, doing good. And then he's looking out the window, and there's a storm happening, and then he sees a crazy lightning smash, and these voices appear, and it's all the phrases of the people that he has killed so far, being like, ooh, yeah, I loved you, I'm sorry I was jealous of you, Lenita. So it's Lenita, and then Antonio being like, I love her so much. Ooh. And then and then you hear Terezinha being like, your soul, I will take your soul. And the doctor, and then the doctor's line is, what are you doing? And then he fully has the most dramatic scene I've ever seen in my life.
Okay. So he hears these voices, these disembodied voices, and again, this one is even longer than the cemetery scene. But look, we are not exaggerating when we say that he is belting at the top of his voice and this is what I wrote down in all caps. This is some theater reach the back of the house acting. Like, this is operatic, where he's just so over the top. It's cool because, like, there's wind, it's a storm, there's, ghost noises, but I was like, are we still watching this?
He's like throwing himself around the house. The voices get like louder and louder and like wavier and crazier, and he at one point he's like, Lenita, Antonio, Rodolfo, and he's just like naming the people he's killed and like rolling around his house. He grabs a bottle of booze and he like drinks it and pours it all over himself, and for some reason all over his house. Yes. Yes. I'm not gonna lie, I checked out because it was so long. I did it for you, Terezinha. Like, he screams that like Omen style. I did it for you, Damien. Like, wow. I did it for you, Terezinha. And then he's like, you abandoned me. You didn't give me a son. Like,
you fucking asshole.
What an asshole. Fuck heaven, fuck hell, I want proof, show me the proof, tudo é mentira, it's all lies, é mentira, oh my God. And it's like,
I'm so glad that you paid attention to what he was saying, because I was staring and it was like full glaze.
Mostly I was just cackling through it because he was like chucking his body throughout the room and screaming these things. 7 hours after he's screamed into the abyss, we go to the doctor's funeral, and there's Zé do Caixão. He fully walks on
Literally what I was about to say. He walks on the doctor's grave to go give his condolences to whoever. After he's like, my condolences, bullshit. The people at the grave are like, we need evidence. Stat.
A prova. As provas. Like, we need, like, everybody knows. At this point, yeah, at this point, everybody's like, he's the one that's killing everybody, dude. So we go to the bar, and everybody's like, guys, it's Dia dos Mortos. It's Day of the Dead. So we should go home early because we don't want to disturb the dead when they like come. Because I guess, okay, so this is one thing that I was confused about. Because when you hear Day of the Dead, you think October 31st, November 1st, technically November 1st, Dia de los Muertos. So I'm not quite sure, like, I didn't Google it. So I'm pretty sure it's not October, pero who knows?
I don't remember anything like that from having lived in Brazil, but also it was just Good Friday a couple weeks ago.
Exactly. So I'm not sure like when Day of the Dead is in Brazil, but it's Day of the Dead. And and everybody's like, it's getting late in the middle of the night. Like the I guess the superstition is that the dead will walk among us, and then we don't want to get in the way of the dead doing their procession, basically. And everybody's like, you're right, let's fucking go home. And then who's at the door?
Who could it be?
Who?
Who's up there to ruin the party yet again?
Who shows up with his shitty top hat and halfway cape, and he's like, good evening.
But this is so fucking weird that he's like leaving already. He's so like jovial, like, ha, you're bullshit. No, stay, have a drink with me, stay. It's like, okay.
Sir.
But this, again, bald guy to the rescue. Because Zay is like, oh, don't you believe in ghosts? The ghost procession, so stupid. And he's like, everyone has a right to their own beliefs.
Bald guy, thank you.
He literally throughout this film, bald guy, is like, I think there were 5 times where I was like, yes, bald guy. But somehow, actually, not somehow, of course, everybody's like, okay, Zay. And he orders everybody a round of drinks. And it's like, this is not how you make friends, buddy.
So Zay buys everybody drinks. He goes over to Maria, who is in the corner. And he's like, sweet baby Maria. She has had the shitty end of the stick at this bar. She's like, Dad, why did you sell my bird? Dad. Dad, I'm afraid of this man. And her dad is like, keep it to yourself because things are going to get complicated. And here we are. So he's like, hello, I have a gift for you. And he gives her like, I guess some money. And she's like, I don't want this. Oh, look, my uncle is here. So another hot guy. That guy was hot.
It was beautiful.
And then he's like, hey, you fucking dick, get your fucking hands off my niece and go fuck yourself.
So he takes the money. He's like, we don't want this. Take your money. And he throws it on the floor, which honestly, I was like, a round of applause for handsome uncle. Because fuck this guy.
Fuck that guy.
But then...
and then he, again, the nails, he, like, grabs Maria's face, and then he's like, it's her money, and then he, like, does a fucking hand down the boob, and there is a full, not even a boob touch, it's a boob grab. Like, he's there for a while, and his hand stays there until she walks away, dude. That hand was on that boob for a long time. So he's like, but it's her money, and she fucking gets to keep it and use it. And then the uncle's like, eat a fucking dick, and Maria, like, kind of scoots away. He turns around, and by he, I mean Zé do Caixão. There's a Jesus, like, bust with a thing of thorns. He grabs the crown of thorns, and the uncle is basically like, we're tired of your bullshit. Go fuck yourself. You're a piece of shit. And he's like, pick up that money. And the uncle's like, no, dude, go fuck yourself. And then Zé do Caixão was like, pick up the money, and then grabs the crown of thorns that he has in his hands and shoves it. And it's a face full of crown of thorns on the uncle's face.
Again, cool, fake-looking prosthetic, but like cool effects that we get there. Gory close-up of thorn crown in face. But again, just like the bald guy whip attack from earlier in the film, okay, this sucks. You got a crown of thorns, you're bleeding. Dude, pull it out of your face and punch this guy. Punch Zé in the face.
Yeah.
Clearly take him. Your face is in pain, I get it. But like, snap
It's not that bad. You can fucking kick him in the dick and walk away.
Nothing else is wrong with you. Nothing happens. I'm pretty sure he takes the money, hands it back to him. Does he do that? I can't remember. Yes,
he crawls over, he grabs the money, he gives it back to, or he gives it to Maria. Maria's freaking out because she's seen her uncle get a face full of thorns. Mm-hmm. And so again, they both grab the money and leave.
Before he leaves, this random woman shows up and she's like, "Who?" She's like, "Where's the Queiroz family house?" I don't remember if that's the pronunciation.
Queiroz.
So it's Day of the Dead. This is a single woman. There's nobody with her. She's in a bar pretty much full solely of men. And she's like, "Could somebody take me through the dark?"
Somebody's like, "It's past the cemetery." And she's like, "Will anybody be my escort?" And they're like, "It's Day of the Dead, dude. We don't do that. We don't want to do that." And she's like, "I'll happily pay." And everybody's like, And then fucking,
of course,
Caixão in the back pipes up with his fucking actual pipe. And he's like, "I would love to fucking take you to your fucking aunt's home, you fucking beautiful bitch." And then everybody's like,
there's even a guy who was like, "You could stay at my place tonight." And I'm like, "Lady, you need to, like, what are you doing here? These
my shoulders were like,
yeah.
I was like, no.
It's not good. But as they exit, I don't remember what it was specifically, but he says something like, "Should I see a corpse on the way, I'll send them your way." And I'm like, this lady he's never met is standing next to him. Immediately, I would have been like, on second thought, maybe not.
I'm good.
I'm going to stay right here, actually. You know what?
Yeah.
I'll stay in this bar all night if I have to. I'll wait till the sunset.
Yeah.
So, but of course.
I wrote, as they're walking, gypsy.
Love it.
The gypsy again, she shows up and she's like, hey. And she gives them 4 warnings. If you hear the wind, it's the souls of the dead that are like calling to you. If you see a black cat, that's the fucking devil. He's coming for you. If you hear footsteps behind you, you better watch out because shit is about to go down. If you hear an owl, that means you're basically at your end. And and fucking Zé do Caixão is like, "She's a stupid bitch. Don't listen to this stupid witch ass bitch. She's a fucking asshole." And the witch is like, "Cool." Okay. So they go, he drops her off and he leaves. And as he's walking home, all of the warnings begin to come into fruition. So we see the leaves are like starting to whatever in the winds, and then you hear her voiceover of what she just said. The winds mean the ghosts or the souls of the whatever. It seems as though he's creeped out, but he's like, okay, who cares? Yeah. And he's still walking through the thing, and then a black cat freaks out. The devil is approaching. O demônio tá atrás de você or whatever. And then he's like, he hears footsteps and he's like, "Don't come near me. I have a gun. I'll shoot you," whatever. And then he turns around, he shoots at nothing. And then you hear the gypsy again being like, "You hearing footsteps?" And then finally he's like, we hear hoo hoo hoo, and we see, and it's fully a stuffed owl,
and it's somebody taking the owl and bringing it closer to the camera
and
with his
shaking it. Yeah.
Which Listen, it's 1964. We get it. You don't have much money to make this movie happen. I'm still buying it. It's fine.
I'm fine by it. So then you hear her say, a coruja. Owl in Portuguese is coruja, everybody. It's a very fun word.
Coruja.
A coruja. She's going to bring you the ends of time. Like, she's the sign of the ends of time or whatever. And he is like, at this point, freaking out.
Yeah. Finally, honestly, finally.
As he's walking back home and he's experiencing all the things that the gypsy has just said, you can see him growing in fear. And then a hand with fire comes in, and it's like, okay, how do I describe this special effect, Johnny?
Okay, so to me, it looked like a hand wrapped in tinsel, like a silver garland hand stop motion movement thing. That makes literally no sense, but you have to see it to believe it.
Yes. It almost is like a piece of paper, and they cut out that footage, and then around that cut, they put tinsel all around it.
So apparently they achieved this effect by actually gluing glitter onto the film. So it's like a stop motion glitter effect surrounding.
That makes sense.
The hand that comes into frame with the candle or the fire or the whatever.
With the candle. It turns out that we revealed that it's the zombie of Antonio, his best friend. Zé do Caixão sees him and he's like, what? He freaks out. He freaks out. And
it's honestly, Antonio looks creepy. He looks good.
Very creepy. So, okay, so when people used to be buried back in the day, I don't know if you guys know, especially in poor areas, they used to like stuff cotton into people's mouths and ears and nose so that their like bodily fluids and all that shit, whatever was left over, wouldn't like leak out. So he has like cotton and stuff in his nose, which I thought was a really great detail. And all of a sudden, again, another crazy effect for 1964. He sees the procession of the dead. And it looks like, what's the term when you like turn black into white in film?
I believe it's the negative.
Yes.
It's the negative effect.
And it's all very like, and so you see people walking, and then he sees himself in a coffin. Like these dead people are like walking with him in a coffin, in an open coffin. He's like crossed arms, closed eyes in the coffin. And the sound effects for this is where the are at their peak.
So two things here. During the procession of ghosts, when he sees himself in the coffin. So I watched this with Matthew. For those of you who don't know, Matthew's my boyfriend. And Zé gives like, he's literally staring, and then he's like, ah! Matthew and I laughed so hard at this moment because it's so melodramatic, so out of the blue. His like scare moment of seeing himself in the coffin. Honestly, watch the movie specifically for this moment. It's worth it. But then next up, we see Terezinha in the sky floating with the noose, and she's singing opera in the sky.
She's just like, ooh, ooh, ooh. She is just like, it is
full soprano up there. She is singing opera in the sky.
All of a sudden, he's stumbling through the cemetery again. But this time, he's, like, afraid. And it's not him being a cocky bitch being like, you're dead, hoes. He's like,
no, he's scared now. Finally, he's terrified.
So he's stumbling, and he sees that the crypt where Antonio and Terezinha were buried is open, and there's like smoky stuff coming out of it. So he crawls in it, and then we have another scene of just like absolute drama. Like he fully is like rolling around on the walls. There are candles that he chucks his body upon that it then like turns them off because he's just like literally rolling on the walls, and it's
and screaming the full time. Não acredito.
Não acredito. Não acredito. I can't believe it. I don't believe it. So he's in the tomb, and he's like, I don't believe it. I don't believe basically what he's just seen of the procession. He's like, this is a bunch of bullshit. And then he turns and he sees a coffin, and it says Antonio de Andrade, which is his best friend. And then he rolls around a little bit more into that. And then he lands on the other coffin, and it says Terezinha de whatever the fuck her last name was. And again, he's like rolling around, freaking. Não acredito. Mentira, mentira, é uma mentira. So he's like, I will only believe it until I open these coffins and make sure that they are inside the coffins. So he smashes the locks on their tomb, on their coffins. He opens Antonio first. It's obviously like a mannequin. It's definitely not.
It looks like a haunted house mannequin, but like still really awful to look at.
Terrible.
Plus that horrendous huge spider has returned, and it's crawling on top of this mannequin.
And then he goes to the other coffin. He opens it, and that's because she's a little bit more fresh. It's Terezinha, but she's got fucking maggots crawling out of her forehead and shit, which I was like, for 1964, that's pretty good. We cut to a lot of the townspeople, the people from the bar, basically coming into the cemetery and be like, I heard something's going, doesn't seem right. What's going on? And then they go in, they head over to the tomb of Antonio and Terezinha, and they see Zé do Caixão. He has his half of his torso is out of like their little window, and here again with the eyeballs,
they've been like gouged out.
Or they like popped out. You know that lady from
Ripley's Believe It or Not,
where her eyeballs pop out? It looks like that.
Yeah, it looked cool.
Oh, it looks so great. The thing that I said about like eyeballs being funky and crazy, that they're doing something with prosthetics, that's another thing where they're like, let's put a crazy eyeball on him, and he's like upside down dead.
They nailed it.
Finally, this fucking asshole is fucking dead. And then I said, Zé with eyeballs popping out. The clock strikes midnight because a meia-noite eu levarei a sua alma. Fim. Something that I really loved about the film is that he is the protagonist. Like he's the story is about him, but he is not the good guy. It's not very often that you have the villain be the lead of your story.
That's what makes it so interesting and iconic. But also, whenever I watch a movie and I'm like, God, I fucking hated that character, you know, props to whoever plays the part, because that means you did your job correctly.
Yes.
He was so irritating and aggravating and such a shitty person that I was like, this is difficult to watch.
At the end, when you see him there with his eyeballs bursting out of his skull, you're happy. And that's his whole point. The whole point is for you to watch him and for you to be like, God, what a nightmare human. Another thing that I loved is when I hear the title, At Midnight I Will Take Your Soul, I thought it was going to be about this man taking people's souls at midnight. And in the end, it was his soul that got taken at midnight. And I thought that was a really smart move of having us follow this terrible person around, and you never are on his side. You're never like, like you watch Freddy and you watch villains in horror and you're like, oh, that shitty teen, whatever. You know what I mean? But still, when you watch their movies, you're like, but there's Nancy and there's, you know, fucking
Laurie Strode and like the people you're rooting for, and those are the people. The movies are about them.
Yeah.
About the heroine usually, and in this situation, you're right. It's just like you're following the villain around throughout the movie.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting shift.
I agree. And I think it's what a smart way of introducing horror into the world like that, especially with this character.
And in such like a religious country, to present such like a blasphemous character.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a good thing that he did, in that he knew that if he showed up with this character and he was like, I don't believe in heaven, I don't believe in hell, I don't believe in any of the shit that literally most of this country believes in, that he probably had a good idea that these people were gonna not like this character.
He must have known that this would be, if not like massively popular, at least controversial enough that people would pay attention to it.
Totally.
So I have a few fun little trivia facts. So let's first like hit it off after it's just talking about the fact that this was a huge hit in Brazil.
Huge hit.
Huge. And apparently one theater in downtown Sao Paulo played this particular movie for 4 months straight.
Amazing.
Awesome. The crew refused to shoot a scene because there wasn't enough sunlight. So apparently the director, our lovely Zé Caixão, forced them to shoot the scene by pointing a gun at the cameraman. And various crew members have confirmed the story. On one of the rare occasions when he would respond to questions about the incident, Marins claimed that the gun was only a prop, which is bullshit. Like, I'm sure that this actually happened and that he was like, film the fucking scene, dude. So this is like an unsighted, is I guess what you would call it.
Sure.
Whatever, I don't know who said this, but Zé, with his fingernails manicured into claws, was the inspiration for A Nightmare on Elm Street's Freddy Krueger. Now me, you know I am a huge Freddy Krueger fan. Like, out of all the slashers,
it's your jam.
Nightmare on Elm Street's my top. Like, above Friday the 13th, it's my top. So I was like, excuse me? Because I've never heard this. So immediately I was like, beepity beep beep, let me do some research about this.
Beepity beep beep.
Because I had, like I said earlier on, I was like, after he killed Lenita with the spider, he gives that very Freddy Krueger laugh. So it says here, initially conceived by Marins to serve as the antagonist in Levarei sua Alma, Coffin Joe has gone on to appear in 9 more films, 3 television series, songs, music videos, and comic books. The character has been called Brazil's national boogeyman and is considered a horror icon and a cultural icon in Brazil, with his popularity resulting in descriptions of him as being the Brazilian equivalent of the United States' Freddy Krueger.
Wow!
You know, the nails clearly are part of it. So going off of that, I was like, okay, well, let me see. Like, I want to know if Wes Craven, like,
sure,
did he say, okay, inspiration for Freddy Krueger was
Zé do Caixão.
Because as far as I know, Freddy Krueger, talking about Wes Craven, Freddy Krueger, the name was actually a bully from when Wes Craven was a kid.
Amazing.
I believe I'm right about that. And there were actually, people had died in their sleep, and they had been like saying that they were being chased by something. And this actually happened. This was in the news. Wes Craven read this and made
a movie.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least, apparently when Wes Craven was a kid, he saw some like homeless guy out in an alley who was wearing like the Freddy Krueger sweater, the hat, and everything like that, and like terrorized Wes Craven as a kid. Like, Wes Craven looked out the window in the night, saw this creepy guy outside, and the dude fully like attempted to scare child Wes Craven. Like,
oh my God.
Now, these are all like things that I've just heard, so who knows whether they're facts or not. I have no idea. So sure. I looked it up. I found this guy, José Mellinas, on Twitter, wrote, Elm Street experts, did Wes Craven ever recognize in any of his interviews the influence of Zé do Caixão's long fingernails on Freddy Krueger's blade glove? And so there's this man named Tommy Hudson. Uh-huh. And so I look up this guy. Tommy Hudson is like a writer, director, and there is a documentary out there called Never Sleep Again. That's what it's called. It's like
nice, good job.
Documentary about the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I believe he was like a writer of this movie, producer. He might have put the whole thing together. I'm not quite sure, but I think he's done documentaries for Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, Return of the Living Dead, a bunch of horror series. So this is what he writes. He never came up in any of my conversations with Wes about inspiration or look. It was always about, from what was mentioned to me or in researching, the primal fears of claws tearing, slashing at us, that the fear was buried in our subconscious and how it could be used to great effect. So apparently there is no relation between Caixão.
The way you said that, there is no relation.
But like I still feel a connection here.
I really wish that it was. Well, I will say this. Like, the nails are definitely like, I'm sorry. I've seen Cardi B with longer nails than fucking
these nails are super popular. These lovely nails. I think they get longer in the movies that we like. The movies coming up.
I want to say this, and I do apologize if this is gonna sound judgmental. I can't. I simply cannot. With the long nails, because these are the things. These are my fears. These are the things. How are you wiping yourself on the toilet? How are you masturbating? Particularly women.
Right. How?
Listen, toys, great, good time. Enjoy yourself.
Still gonna get in the way though. Those things are long.
Jonathan, I know you don't have one of these, but them's ladies is sensitive. Jonathan, I want to ask you some questions. Were you scared?
No, I was not. I was genuinely creeped out. This is what I said. Genuinely creeped out, genuinely annoyed. But I did find the Ring-ish intro of the witch being like, don't watch this movie or you'll be cursed. I did find that very, very effective. But no, I was not scared. Were you?
I was not scared, but I was annoyed. I understand where people could find fear in this, especially in 1964. Yes. I think it's effective in the, like, there were points where I was grossed out. I thought the special effects and the points where things had like makeup and stuff like that, I thought those worked. But in general, even though we were supposed to feel fear from him, I didn't really feel it. What was your best scare?
There was no like real jump scare, but I would say Antonio coming in with the glitter candle was the closest thing to a jump scare, and he did look creepy. But the thing that scared me the most, I'd say, was just the spider crawling on Lenita, because that was a real spider. It was huge, and it was on her bare skin. Horrifying. Right.
For me, my biggest scare, it wasn't really, I don't think it would be considered an actual scare, but the part that I had most like hold my pearls situation was when he was beating the shit out of Terezinha, when he was just like smacking her around and he just kept going. And I was like, I don't like this.
It was very realistic.
Yeah. And I just, again, like, this is a sweet tangent, but we've been watching the early James Bonds recently for our own personal reasons, and there's been a lot of like lady smacking around that I don't like. And so watching this, I'm just like, God damn it, stop hitting ladies, you assholes.
The way that it's presented too, now we're talking about James Bond, but here, like, it's literally like you hit a woman and then like 2 seconds later, she's like, oh, you silly, you cad. And it's like, no. But agreed, that scene was really...
That was the toughest one for me, if you will. Yeah. Who was your favorite character?
All right, so I started by, of course, I always have like, well, this one, but this one too. So I'm so sorry. But the Bruxa was great, but I'm just going to go straight up with the bald guy because, again, I was like, yes, bald guy. So whoever, I don't know what his name was, but bald guy all the way. What about your favorite character?
For me, it's the Bruxa. For me, is that sweet gypsy lady being like, and just like literally being like, bitch, if you don't fucking stay with your man, you're dying. You're dying. You're going to hell. And then throughout the movie, just being like, oh, you're dead.
Whoever that actress is, she was so good.
Killed it.
Times, but like she cast her as the witch forever. She was so
forever
good.
Best line.
It's a very simple line, but again, I gotta stick with my bald guy. when we're in one of the various bar scenes, and Zay is making fun of everybody, like, "Oh, you're so stupid for believing in the procession of ghosts," making fun of you guys are all idiots. And I think I already said this before, but the bald guy is like, "Everyone has a right to their own beliefs." Slow clap, sir. Now, it's hard for me to say that because a lot of people's belief, like, we live in a very tense time, so...
Yeah.
But, like, it is a good reminder, like, let people believe in whatever they need to believe in.
Because he's not saying, like, believe in my belief. He's saying, like, everybody's got their own thing, bro.
This bald guy was like, who is this? I'd love to see a movie. Like, give me a spin-off about this sweet man. So, totally. Bald man had the best line for me. Believe whatever you want to believe, you guys.
All the way.
As long as you don't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
That's it. What about you?
For me, it's...
Oh, boy.
Hoje é meu dia de sorte. Até o diabo está aqui. I loved it. Today's my lucky day. Even the devil's here. It makes no sense. And I want it on a t-shirt so bad. I just really want to be like, hoje é meu dia de sorte. Até o diabo tá aqui. Like,
I'll work on it for you. Christmas is coming up soon enough.
Thank you. What do you think your best death was in there?
Lenita with the spider. What a hideous way to go. So like a huge spider crawling on you, taking a nice bite, you die. No. So I'd say best death was the spider death.
For me, it's the doctor. I love the fingers in the eyes. I really like the effects that they did on his face. Also I mean, I don't care for the setting on fire. I just really love the fingers in the eyes situation, just because the whole movie is just like, look at these nails, look at these nails, look at these nails. And I'm really glad that they used the nails to do something. Cause I was like, we can't just have him be like, yes, bitch, yes, my nails, and like him not do anything with it. So I'm really glad that that's what happened. Did you learn anything from this film?
Well, I learned just a lot about Zé do Caixão and Brazilian horror. Like learning about him as a Brazilian horror icon was incredibly revealing. I did not know that this man even existed.
Listen, I lived in Brazil for 15 fucking years, and I had never, and like they showed like doing research, I was like, he's been on everything, and I haven't nary a time. Like, I love that he got this iconic character to just keep going through the years, and that he let it become its own thing, and that he followed that road, opened up more horror doors for other people, and I think that's really wonderful.
I'm glad that we know about him. I'm excited to watch more of his movies, as irritating as I found the character, but it's like, I'm
excited to see where he goes. Where are they going to take Zé do Caixão? It's very, very exciting. How many oohs do you give this thing?
I give this 3 oohs. I honestly was going to give it less, but I think just because I learned that he's such an iconic character, I got to give it more. I'm going to give it 3. How about you?
I think I'm a 3 oohs too. Ooh. Just because as the very first Brazilian horror movie, that says a lot. As an independent film, it was ambitious. It had not a terrible storyline. I thought it was like pretty, like it followed through very well. I think the only reason we get 3 is because it's a movie from 1964. I think it doesn't age that great. But you know, I think as the first stamp in the Brazilian horror movie passport, it deserves at least 3 because it's setting the example, it's setting the road for the other ones that we're about to see, and I think he did a really good job at putting the first brick on a hopefully great foundation as we move on.
Ooh.
Well, oh my God. I really hope that at midnight nobody takes you guys' souls, because
watch out there. Keep your ears open for cackling witches and random disembodied ghost voices.
If a gypsy comes up to you and is like, gives you a bunch of rules, why don't you just fucking follow them? Just in case.
And I mean, just like, you know, try to be a nice person. Let people believe in what they want to believe.
How about don't be a dick. People. If women are infertile, don't kill them. And just like chill out, bro. You don't have to fucking be so crazy.
It'll be all right.
We thank you so much for listening to Uy, qué horror. I don't know what. Black Lives Matters, Trans Lives Matters.
Yes.
Go vote. Donate.
Vote. Donate. Protest.
Save the USPS.
Volunteer. Go be a poll worker.
Ooh, go be a poll worker, guys. In general, our country is a hot pile of shit, but if you do your part, we can make it better. Don't be Zé do Caixão.
Don't. Just be a good person.
Be a good person.
Yeah.
We love you. I love you, Jonny.
I love you too. And
oh my God. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.